I relocated to this neighborhood 6 months back, looking to get away from the noise and chaos of city living. Quiet streets, friendly faces, a slower rhythm, that's all I wanted. What I never saw coming was a 73-year-old man who'd end up teaching me that the most powerful way to honor someone who's gone is by bringing joy to the people who are still here. This is the story of Mr. Henry Pattinson and the Halloween tradition that transformed an entire neighborhood, and eventually transformed me too. Before we get into it, have you ever wondered about the story hiding behind someone's personal tradition? Tell me in the comments. And if stories about legacy, community, and finding meaning inside law speak to you, go ahead and subscribe so you catch the next one. Let me tell you about the Halloween house. I'd spent the 5 years before this working as a graphic designer in New York, crammed into a tiny studio apartment, dealing daily with traffic, noise, and the relentless churn of city life. I was completely burned out. So when my job shifted fully remote during the pandemic and stayed that way, I made the call. Leave the city, find a small town, start fresh. And I found the perfect one: tree-lined streets, a local coffee shop, a farmer's market every Saturday, the kind of place where people actually waved as you passed. I bought a modest 2-bedroom on Elmwood Drive for less than I'd been paying in city rent. It needed work, but it was mine, quiet and peaceful. On the corner of Elmwood and Oak sat a house everyone in town seemed to know. A modest 2-story place, pale yellow with white trim, well kept but otherwise unremarkable, except for one detail. Even in April, Halloween decorations sat in the front windows, a small jack-o'-lantern figurine, a black cat statue. That's Mr. Pattinson's house, my neighbor Laura told me one day in May when I asked about it. She was in her 50s, warm, had lived on the street for 2 decades. He really likes Halloween, huh? I asked. Laura laughed. You have no idea. Wait until October. His house becomes a legend. Kids come from all over town. Hell, from neighboring towns just to trick or treat there. Why? Because Mr. Pattinson gives out full-size candy bars. Not the little fun-size ones. Full-size. Snickers. Milky Ways. Reese's. And his decorations, Josh, you've never seen anything like it. Animatronics.
Fog machines.
The works. It's like a professional haunted house. Except it's just one old man doing it by himself. That must cost a fortune. Thousands of dollars every year, I'd guess. He's been doing it for as long as I've lived here. My kids are grown now, but they still talk about trick-or-treating at Mr. Pattinson's when they were little. It was the highlight of their Halloween. I glanced down the street at the pale yellow house. What's his story? Laura's expression softened. He's a widower. His wife Julia died about 5 years ago. Before that, they did Halloween together. Now he does it alone. He's a sweet man. Keeps to himself mostly, but he's kind. You should introduce yourself. I meant to. But April slid into May, May into June, and between work and settling into the house, I never got around to it. I'd occasionally spot Mr. Pattinson, a thin man with white hair, out gardening or checking his mail, and we'd exchange a wave, nothing more. Then September rolled in and everything changed. I was working from home on a Tuesday afternoon in mid-September when a truck pulled up outside. Curious, I looked out to see a delivery van parked in front of Mr. Pattinson's house. 2 men hauling out box after box, big ones, plenty of them. Over the next hour, I watched them make trip after trip into his house and garage. By the time they left, they delivered somewhere around 30 boxes. The next day, he started decorating. I watched from my window, trying not to be too obvious about it. As he carried out the first pieces, a life-size skeleton, a mechanical spider that skittered across the porch, strings of orange and purple lights along the roofline. Over the following week, the whole property transformed. New decorations appeared daily, tombstones in the yard, a fog machine puffing test clouds, animatronic ghosts in the windows, bats hanging from the eaves. By the end of September, his house looked like something lifted straight out of a theme park, all built by his own hands. A 73-year-old man, up on ladders stringing lights, assembling elaborate scenes. I was impressed and honestly a little worried. What if he fell? What if he got hurt? On the last Saturday of September, I walked down to his house. He was in the yard adjusting a mechanical which that cackled whenever someone walked past. Mr. Pattinson. He looked up startled. Yes. Im Josh. I moved into the blue house down the street in April. I've been watching you decorate. It's incredible, by the way. And I was wondering, do you need any help? He blinked at me, clearly caught off guard. Help? Yeah. I mean, this is a huge job for one person. If you want an extra set of hands, I'm happy to help. I work from home, so my schedule's flexible. He studied me a moment, something flickering across his face, surprise, maybe uncertainty. You want to help me decorate for Halloween? Sure, if you want help. No pressure. You don't even have kids. True. But I like Halloween. And honestly, Mr. Pattinson, I'm new to the neighborhood, and I don't know many people yet. It'd be nice to have something to do. But if you'd rather work alone, I completely understand. He was quiet for a long stretch, then smiled, small but real. I could use the help, actually. It's getting harder to do this all myself. My knees aren't what they used to be. Then I'm in. When do you want me? Are you free tomorrow afternoon? I am now. The next day, Sunday, I showed up at his house at 2. He answered the door in jeans and a flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up.
Come in, come in.
We've got a lot to do. The inside was neat and clearly decorated years ago. Floral wallpaper, older furniture, photographs covering nearly every surface. I noticed right away that most featured a woman I assumed was his late wife, Julia. But there were also photos of a young boy, dark hair, huge smile, captured at various ages growing up. He caught me looking. That's my son, Tommy. He looks like a happy kid. He was. His voice went soft. Come on, the decorations are in the garage. The garage was stuffed floor to ceiling with boxes and bins, every one meticulously labeled. Tombstones. Skeletons. Lights orange. Fog machine. Good Lord, I said. How much stuff do you have? Too much, probably. He laughed. But every year I see something new and think Tommy would have loved that. And I buy it. There it was again, Tommy, spoken in past tense. We spent that whole afternoon hauling decorations out and setting up the yard. Henry directed, I did the heavy lifting. We built a graveyard scene with a dozen tombstones, positioned a 7-foot Grim Reaper by the walkway, rigged a ghost to glide across the porch on a wire. He was meticulous about every placement. The kids walk up this path, he explained, so the sequential reveals matter. They see the tombstones first, then the Reaper, then the ghost swoops over their heads. It builds anticipation. You've thought about this a lot. 33 years of practice. We worked until the sun dipped low. As we packed up for the day, I asked carefully, your son, Tommy, he must have really loved Halloween. He smiled, though sadness colored it. He did, more than anything. From the time he was 3 years old, Halloween was his favorite day of the year. He'd start planning his costume in August. He had this energy, endless energy. And on Halloween night, he'd run from house to house like the candy was going to disappear if he didn't get there fast enough. How old is he now? The question just hung there. His smile faded. He died when he was 12, 33 years ago this summer. My stomach dropped. Mr. Pattinson, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. It's okay. You didn't know. He looked out at the decorations we'd built. Tommy died in July of 1990. Drowning accident at summer camp. He was a good swimmer, but there was a current in the lake that no one knew about. By the time they got to him, it was too late. I'm so sorry. Thank you. It was a long time ago. But it never really stops hurting. You just learn to carry it differently. We stood there in silence a moment. Then I asked gently, is that why you do all this? For Tommy. For Tommy. For Julia, my wife. She died 5 years ago. And for all the kids in this neighborhood who love Halloween as much as Tommy did. He turned to face me. After Tommy died, Julia and I were lost. The house felt empty. That first Halloween without him, October of 1990, I wanted to skip it entirely. Couldn't bear the thought of kids coming to the door, reminding me of what we'd lost. But Julia said Tommy would hate it if we didn't celebrate. He'd want other kids to have a magical Halloween. So we did. We decorated. We gave out candy. And Josh, when I saw those kids' faces light up, I saw Tommy. His joy. His excitement. And it helped. So you kept doing it. Every year. It got bigger. More elaborate. Julia and I would spend weeks planning it. After she died, I thought about stopping. But I couldn't. Because this, he gestured at the decorations, this is how I keep them both alive. Tommy and Julia. Every child who comes to my door. Every kid who gets excited about the decorations. Every piece of candy I hand out. It's for them. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. That's beautiful, Mr. Pattinson. Call me Henry. Mr. Pattinson makes me feel even older than I am. I smiled. Okay, Henry. Same time next Sunday. I'd like that. Over the next 4 weeks, I spent every Sunday afternoon at Henry's, helping him decorate. We set up strobe lights for the windows, installed speakers looping spooky music, positioned an animatronic werewolf that howled on a motion sensor, hung hundreds of fake spiderwebs. As we worked, Henry told me about Tommy. He was born in 1978, Henry said one afternoon, untangling what turned out to be Christmas lights repurposed for Halloween. Julia and I had been married for 5 years. We'd been trying for a baby for 2 years. When Tommy finally came, it felt like a miracle. What was he like? Energetic, curious, loud. Henry laughed. He couldn't sit still, always climbing trees, riding his bike, building forts. He loved comic books, superhero stuff mostly. Spider-Man was his favorite. He wanted to be a comic book artist when he grew up. Did he draw? Constantly. We still have boxes of his drawings in the attic. Julia couldn't bring herself to throw them away. Another day, while setting up the fog machine, Henry pulled up a photo on his phone, old, faded, but still clear. A boy about 10, dressed in a homemade Spider-Man costume, grinning at the camera with a pillowcase full of candy. That was his last Halloween, Henry said quietly. 1989. He was 11. Julia made the costume. Took her weeks. Tommy wore it for a month straight after Halloween. To school, to bed, everywhere. We finally had to force him to take it off so we could wash it. He looks happy. He was. That's how I try to remember him. Not the funeral. Not the phone call from the camp director. Just Tommy happy in his Spider-Man costume, coming home with more candy than any kid should be allowed to eat. As October rolled on, I started noticing that Henry wasn't just decorating a house, he was preparing for something much bigger. Stacked in the corner of his garage sat box after box of full-size candy bars, hundreds of them. How many kids usually come? I asked. Last year about 300. 300. Word spreads. Kids come from all over. Some parents drive their children here specifically because they know I give out the good stuff. He smiled. Julia started that tradition. She said if we were going to do this for Tommy, we should do it right. No cheap candy. Full-size bars. The kind that makes kids' eyes light up. Henry, that must cost about $2,000. I start buying in August when they go on sale. It's worth it. I did the math in my head, $2,000 on candy, another $1,000 on decorations, plus electricity and dry ice for the fog machine. $3,000 minimum easily every single year. Don't you ever think about stopping? I asked. I mean, financially, that's a lot. Henry looked at me serious. Josh, I'm 73 years old. I'm retired. I have a pension. Julia and I were careful with money our whole lives. We don't have children to leave an inheritance to. What else am I going to spend it on? This. He gestured around at the decorations. This matters. This keeps Tommy's memory alive. This brings joy to hundreds of kids. That's worth more than money sitting in a bank account. The week before Halloween, we finished the last details, testing every animatronic, every light, every sound effect, laying out a path of luminarias, paper bags with battery-powered candles, leading up to the door. We set the candy table on the front porch. I used to go down to meet the kids, Henry explained, but my knees can't handle the stairs anymore, so now I set up a table on the porch and they come to me. Have you ever considered just putting out a bowl with the Take One sign? Henry looked at me like I'd suggested burning the house down. Absolutely not. The whole point is the interaction. I want to see their costumes. I want to hear them say trick or treat. I want to see their faces when they realize they're getting a full-size candy bar. That's the whole reason I do this. On the afternoon of October 30th, we finished everything. Henry and I stood on the sidewalk taking it all in, and it was spectacular. Every inch decorated, the graveyard, the animatronics, the lights, fog rolling across the lawn, the sound effects on a loop. It looked professional. It looked magical. Tommy would have loved this, Henry said softly. I think he does love it, I said. Wherever he is. Henry smiled. Thank you, Josh, for helping. For listening. For caring about an old man's memories. Thank you for letting me be part of this.
I'm honored.
Will you come tomorrow night? For Halloween? I could use help handing out candy. 300 kids is a lot for one person. I wouldn't miss it. Halloween arrived cold and clear, perfect weather. I got to Henry's house at 5, an hour ahead of trick-or-treating officially starting. He was already on the porch setting up the candy station, dressed up himself, a wizard costume complete with pointed hat and fake beard. You look great, I said. Julia always insisted we dress up, said it added to the magic. He adjusted his hat. I'm keeping up the tradition. By 5:30, kids started trickling in, families with young children getting an early start. By 6, the floodgates opened, kids everywhere. Dozens of them, princesses, superheroes, monsters, witches, all walking up the luminaria-lined path, eyes wide at the decorations. The animatronics triggered as they passed, the werewolf howled, the ghost swooped, the witch cackled. And when each kid reached the porch and said, "Trick or treat," Henry handed over a full-size candy bar. The reactions were priceless. Kids' eyes going huge. A whole candy bar? Mom, look. This is the best house ever. Parents thanked Henry constantly, often adding some version of, I came here when I was a kid. My parents still talk about your house. One mother, around 40, teared up entirely. My son was here in 1995. He loved your decorations. He passed away a few years ago, but I wanted to bring my grandkids. To keep the tradition going. Henry's voice thickened when he answered. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm glad you brought them. By 7, the line stretched down the sidewalk, easily 100 kids deep. Henry greeted every single one, asked about their costumes, made them laugh, handed out candy with real unmistakable joy. I helped manage the line, keeping kids clear of the animatronics, directing the flow. But mostly I just watched Henry. This man had lost his only child 33 years earlier, had lost his wife 5 years back. He had every reason in the world to turn bitter, to withdraw, to give up on joy entirely. Instead, he'd poured thousands of dollars and weeks of labor into making other people's children happy, honoring the son he'd lost by giving other kids the exact kind of magical Halloween Tommy would have wanted for them. Around 8, a boy approached, maybe 11 or 12, in a Spider-Man costume, not a cheap store-bought version, a genuinely good one, clearly homemade with care. Henry froze at the sight of him. For a second I thought something was wrong, then I understood he was looking at Tommy, or at least the memory of him. The boy said, "Trick or treat." Henry's hand shook slightly as he passed over a candy bar. That's a great costume. Thanks. My mom made it. Spider-Man's my favorite. Mine too, Henry said quietly. The boy ran off and Henry sat down heavily. I moved beside him. You okay? That costume. It looked just like the one Julia made for Tommy for his last Halloween. He wiped his eyes. I'm fine. Just memories. Good memories. The best memories. He stood back up. Let's keep going. We've got a lot more kids to make happy. By 9:30, the crowd had thinned considerably. By 10, the last stragglers were leaving. By 10:15, it was just the two of us on the porch, surrounded by empty candy boxes, every single one of the 300 full-size bars long gone. Every year I think I've bought too much, Henry said. Every year I run out. How do you feel? Exhausted, happy, sad, grateful. He looked at me. Thank you for being here tonight, Josh. It means a lot to have someone to share this with. Thank you for letting me be part of it. We sat quietly a while, watching the decorations still lit, still running, the fog machine still puffing mist, the animatronics still cycling. Do you think Tommy knows? Henry asked. About all this? About what I do for him. I'd like to think he's proud. That he understands this is how I keep him alive. Not with sadness but with joy. By giving other kids the Halloween he'd want them to have? I think he knows. And I think he's incredibly proud of you. Henry smiled. I hope you're right. We stayed there a few minutes longer. 2 men on a porch on Halloween night, surrounded by the remains of a tradition built on love and loss. Then Henry said, Josh, would you help me again next year? Absolutely. I'm not going anywhere. Good, because I'm getting older. And someday I won't be able to do this anymore. But maybe if you learn how I do it, you could keep it going. Keep Tommy's Halloween alive. I felt the full weight of what he was asking, the responsibility, the honor of it. I'd be honored, Henry. Promise. As long as I'm here, this tradition continues. Thank you. He stood up slowly, knees protesting. Now help me think. We've got another year to plan for. That was 3 years ago. I'm 31 now, still living in Maplewood, still working as a graphic designer. Still spending every September and October helping Henry get ready for Halloween. Henry's 76 these days, slower than he used to be. His knees hurting more, but every single year without fail, he decorates that house. And every year hundreds of kids show up. Last year we hit almost 400. Word keeps spreading. Some families treat it as an annual pilgrimage, driving in from an hour away just to trick or treat at Mr. Pattinson's. Henry's turned into something of a local legend. The newspaper even ran a story on him last year. The Halloween House. One man's mission to keep his son's memory alive. But to me, he's not a legend. He's my friend, the person who taught me that grief doesn't have to be paralyzing, that loss can be turned into something beautiful, that the best way to honor the dead is by bringing joy to the living. This year, for the first time, Henry asked me to dress up too. Can't let me be the only one in costume, he said. So this past Halloween I stood beside him on his porch, him in his wizard costume, me as a vampire, handing out full-size candy bars to an endless stream of excited kids. And when a little girl, maybe 8, dressed as a superhero, looked up at him and said, "This is the best house ever. You must really love Halloween." Henry smiled. Ido. But more than that, I love making kids happy. My son would have wanted that. Your son must have been cool. He was the coolest. After she ran off, Henry turned to me. You know what the best part is? What? 33 years ago, when Tommy died, I thought his story was over. That he'd just be a name on a gravestone, a photo in a frame. But he's not. He's alive in every child who walks up this path, in every piece of candy we hand out. In this tradition that we've built in his honor, his story didn't end. It just changed form. I had to look away so he wouldn't catch me tearing up. Thank you for understanding that, Josh, and for helping me keep it going. Thank you for teaching me that love doesn't end with death. It just finds new ways to express itself. Henry put a hand on my shoulder. You're a good man. And honestly, I don't think anyone's ever paid me a higher compliment than that. Every Halloween now I think about Tommy Pattinson, a boy I never met, who died before I was even born, but whose love for the holiday has touched thousands of children across 33 years. I think about Henry, who took his grief and turned it into the single most generous act of community devotion I've ever witnessed. And I think about the hundreds of kids who have no idea that when they take a full-size candy bar from the kind old man in the wizard costume, they're taking part in a legacy of love spanning decades. That's the thing about traditions, they're never really about the present moment alone. They're about linking past and future, keeping memory alive, transforming loss into something meaningful. Tommy Pattinson died in 1990, but every Halloween he lives again in his father's decorations, in the joy of children, in one simple act of generosity that says, you are seen, you are celebrated, you matter. And now I'm part of that tradition too. When Henry can no longer keep this going, I will. I'll decorate that house. I'll hand out those full-size candy bars. I'll tell kids about Tommy if they ask. Because that's what love does. It endures. It transforms. It keeps finding ways to shine, even in the dark. Have you ever uncovered the story behind someone's tradition? Or found meaning in honoring someone's memory? Share your story in the comments below. If this story about love, loss, legacy, and the power of keeping memory alive through small acts of kindness touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more meaningful stories every day. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss our next inspiring tale. Thanks for watching and happy Halloween.